another very wonderful evening out there to all of you, my dear friends. We left off in our Bible study of Isaiah 30, where Tophet, the valley of Hinnom, which is located in the valley of Hinnom, it was prepared, appointed from the day of the foundation of the world for this Assyrian king, and whom I believe is pointing towards the Antichrist primarily. But anyway, let's pick up now in Isaiah 31 about how God does not desire his people, the Jews, to look unto Egypt for their aid, but unto him. Woe to them that go down to Egypt for help, and stay on horses, and trust in chariots, because they are many, and in horsemen, because they are very strong. But they look not unto the Holy One of Israel, neither seek the Lord. Yet he also is wise, and will bring evil, and will not call back his words, but will arise against the house of the evildoers, and against the help of them that work iniquity. The Jews were painfully conscious of their weakness in cavalry as compared with the Assyrians. Now, this is a good point that'll be brought up here in just a few more studies about how the Jews, they didn't really have horsemen. Their weakness in cavalry as compared with the Assyrians, and this was one of the considerations that made a league with Egypt so attractive in their eyes. Verse 3, Now the Egyptians are men and not God, and their horses flesh and not spirit. When the Lord shall stretch out his hand, both he that helpeth shall fall, and he that is holpen shall fall down, and they all shall fall together, fell together. Now there's a good lesson to learn in this verse right here about how it's detrimental whenever you bring others into your backsliding, let's say, because even the Egyptians are going to be punished if they aid Israel. For thus hath the Lord spoken unto me, like as the lion and the young lion roaring on his prey. When a multitude of shepherds is called forth against him, he will not be afraid of their voice, nor abase himself for the noise of them. So shall the Lord of hosts come down to fight for Mount Zion and for the hill thereof. You'll notice in the prophets about how quickly that they swap between 2 points of views. And because right here the Lord says, the Egyptians will not stop my hand. No one will stop my hand from what I'm going to do to my own people. And then he swaps right here at the very end. And then he says, and nor shall anyone stop my hand against the enemies of my people. He says, there's no one in whom can stop me. As birds flying, so will the Lord of hosts defend Jerusalem. Defending also, he will deliver it, and passing over, he will preserve it. Turn ye unto him, from whom the children of Israel have deeply revolted. For in that day every man shall cast away his idols of silver, and his idols of gold, which your own hands have made unto you for a sin. In that day, the day of Assyria's discomfiture, shall the vanity of idols be seen and recognized? They have not helped Assyria. How should they help Judah? And we will be seeing that, God willing, about how reliant that Assyria is upon their little gods, and how they mock the God of Israel, and how their gods do nothing for them. Then shall the Assyrian fall with the sword, not of a mighty man, and the sword not of a mean man, shall devour him. Now, isn't that something? Because we know that the sword of the Lord, which is the words of his mouth at the battle of Armageddon, how it destroys. But he shall flee from the sword, and his young men shall be discomfited, and he shall pass over to his stronghold for fear, and his princes shall be afraid of the ensign, saith the Lord, whose fire is in Zion, and his furnace in Jerusalem. And I think that it's very obvious that this is pointing towards the Antichrist because of the next chapter. It leads right into verse 1 of chapter 32, and it says, immediately after that Assyrian has fled in terror, which I believe that the Antichrist is going to do from Christ on that day, it says, behold, a king shall reign in righteousness, and princes shall rule in judgment, and a man shall be as a hiding place from the wind, and a covert from the tempest, as rivers of water in a dry place, as the shadow of a great rock in a weary land. Now notice what it says right here. It talks about the king and then his princes, and then it goes on to saying, the typical man shall be as a hiding place from the wind and a covert from the tempest. The meaning of the figure is that every great man, instead of being a tyrant and oppressor of the poor, shall be a protection against calamity and a source of beneficent activity. The earth's inhabitants are going to be very different when ruled over by Christ. You're not going to see violence and rape and murder and all these tortures. You're not going to see that. Verse 3. And the eyes of them that see shall not be dim, and the ears of them that hear shall hearken. The heart also of the rash shall understand knowledge, and the tongue of the stammerers shall be ready to speak plainly. The vile person shall be no more called liberal, nor the churl said to be bountiful. Here again we have a picture, the exact contrast of that which met us at the beginning of Isaiah's work, when men called good evil and evil good. In that day, everything is it. You're going to know good and you're going to know what's evil, and there's not going to be anything hidden. If a man is evil, he's going to be evil outwardly. There's not going to be any hiding intentions in that day. For the vile person will speak villainy, and his heart will work iniquity, to practice hypocrisy, and to utter error against the Lord, to make empty the soul of the hungry, and he will cause the drink of the thirsty to fail. The instruments also of the churl are evil. He deviseth wicked devices to destroy the poor with lying words, even when the needy speaketh right. But the liberal deviseth liberal things, and by liberal things shall he stand. Rise up, ye women that are at ease. Hear my voice, ye careless daughters. Give ear unto my speech. Many days and years shall ye be troubled, ye careless women. For the vintage shall fail, the gathering shall not come. The prophets, they go after the rulers frequently. That's usually the target of them, because they're the rulers are the ones in whom are living in such luxury. They're the ones who usually aren't concerned with the fear of God or anything. The people are living in fear. They're oppressed. A lot of the time they're oppressed. They're worried about war. They're worried about food shortages. Whereas the rulers, they had no worry like that, so they lived at ease. And that's mainly who Isaiah points out most of the time, is these rich rulers that lived in luxury. The words are commonly taken as predicting a literal failure of the vine crop, and therefore of the supply of wine for the banquets of the rich. A truer insight into the language of a poet-prophet would lead to our seeing in it a symbol of the failure of all forms of earthly joy. Tremble, ye women that are at ease. Be troubled, ye careless ones. Strip you and make you bare, and gird sackcloth upon your loins. They shall lament for the teats, for the pleasant fields, for the fruitful vine. Upon the land of my people shall come up thorns and briars, yea, upon all the houses of joy in the joyous city. It is evident, I think, that the word breast here is used to denote that which nourishes or sustains life, and is synonymous with the fruitful fields. They would mourn over the fields which once contributed to sustain life, but which were now desolate. Because the palaces shall be forsaken, the multitude of the cities shall be left, the forts and towers shall be for dens forever, a joy of wild asses, a pasture of flocks, until the Spirit be poured upon us from on high, and the wilderness be a fruitful field, and the fruitful field be counted for a forest. Then judgment shall dwell in the wilderness, and righteousness remain in the fruitful field, and the work of righteousness shall be peace. Now notice how it says, until the Spirit is poured out upon us, we'll not be blessed. And that goes really for any nation. True blessing comes from on high and from God. You may gain some earthly money here and there, but money that's quickly gained through earthly means is quickly gone by earthly means, even with death. But true riches come from on high. Then judgment shall dwell in the wilderness, righteousness remaineth, and the work of righteousness shall be peace, and the effect of righteousness quietness and assurance forever. And my people shall dwell in a peaceable habitation, and in sure dwellings, and in a quiet resting place. When it shall hail, coming down on the forest, and the city shall be low in a low place. Blessed are ye that sow beside all waters, that send forth there the feet of the ox and the ass. Commentators are divided as to which city is meant here. Some believe it Nineveh of Assyria, others Jerusalem, but I lean towards that of Babylon, as it is the city in which represents the whole world in the latter days, and how it will be brought low in a low place. And one final note from Ellicott. The picture of a golden age of agriculture receives its final touch. That's what Isaiah's been focused on in this chapter. The whole land should be irrigated by calmly flowing streams, and men should cast their seed broadcast, and the oxen and the asses should draw the plow over a rich and fertile field. It's certainly going to be a very different world when Christ reigns. Just consider it. Right now, we live in a world based around fear. It's mainly rooted in fear because, well, death is around every corner. We're worried about our families. We're worried about our jobs and the bills and money and how's everything going to happen. We're worried about the governments of the world, and and it's just getting worse and worse by the day. Well, whenever Christ reigns, there'll be none of that. No need to worry. No, you won't even have to. You won't have to lock your doors, because that evil will not have its reign over us. Whenever the Prince of Peace rules, we'll see happiness magnified by a million. We'll see peace everywhere. It will consume the atmosphere. Will be of peace. We really don't know anything about what that's like. I thank you all for joining me once again, my dear friends. We're going to leave off right there for today. Kind of a short study, I know, but we're about to come up on some pretty long studies. Thank you all for joining me. Hope that you all learned something. God of peace, love, and mercy be with you. Amen.